Okay, now we've reached a place where we can start doing some page styling. So let's go ahead and start with this H1. We only have one H1 on the page. If you were to go back and look at the HTML, you'd see that. So let's go ahead and just do a rule for H1. And let's just see what happens if we make this about, I don't know, let's do a font size. First of all, let's do font weight. All right, and let's do 700 because remember 700 is the bolder one, and that's one that we did import into our style sheet. If you wanted to double check, you can look up here to see what the different weights are. Okay, so there's the font weight, and I also want to do the color so that it's white. Let's do that, and that's probably okay. And then if you wanted to see, like by clicking somewhere else, you could see what that would look like, and it might need like a text shadow behind it so that it pops out a little bit more. So we'll do text shadow and let's do actually, before we do text shadow, I'm going to cut this. First, let's get the size that we actually want, because if we don't get the size right, then the text shadow might need to change too. So let's do font size, and let's try like 3M and see what that looks like. That might be okay. Let's give that a shot. The other thing too that we want to do maybe is do a text align center. You might like it left aligned, and that might be okay for you. I'm going to go ahead and do a text align center for myself. Let's do text align and then center, right? And now I'm more comfortable doing that text shadow now that we have the font size kind of set up. And so let's do, I'm going to do 0, 0 so that it the shadow is going to be directly coming straight down on top, and it's basically going to not have a skew in either direction. So, and then I'm going to do a blur of, let's maybe say about 6 pixels. Let's try that. And see, right now it's white. It's doing a white blur because it's going to take the color of the text unless I specify something else. So I'm going to specify, let's just try black like that. And that might be okay. It might be a little heavy. Let's see if we take this down to like a blur of 6. That might be better. You could do something like that. You could also try something where you've got an RGBA value if you feel like that's too strong. So you could do all zeros, 0, 0, 0, and then let's do like, you know, 0.8 or 9 or something like that. And that might be a little bit better. It's like not quite as heavy. So we could do something like that maybe. Okay, so that's my H1, and then I would want to style my byline. And so I think the byline, if you go back here and take a look, it actually has an ID of byline. So I'm just going to do byline like this. I'm not even going to put the paragraph tag. And one of the advantages of not doing like that, even though it would still do the same thing, is that later if I decided I wanted that to be something other than a paragraph, then I can change it to something other than a paragraph, and as long as I've just got this byline, it'll still style it in the same way. Okay, so I want to copy a couple of things. Let's copy the color, because I think I still want that byline to be white, and then I'm also going to copy the text shadow. Let's just copy that and see if that looks okay. All right, the other thing I'll do is I'll do a text align center. We'll put that there. All right, and so we've got this text worked out. All right, and so then as we style this up, or excuse me, scroll this up, you see that it is pulling up the page. Now the other thing that I think that I'd like to do that we didn't do last time is I think I'd like to put a drop shadow on the bottom of the header and maybe on the top of the sticky nav. And the reason is that I think that it might look a little bit more seamless. It might look a little nicer as it's scrolling past each other. So let's go ahead and find where we've just got the header right here. And I can do, it's not a text shadow, it's going to be a box shadow if you remember, right? So box shadow. And let's do, again, let's do like 0, 0, and then this time we're going to have 2 other values. We're going to have the blur and then the spread. So let's try maybe 10 pixels and see if we can do like a 15 pixel spread. And then let's do RGBA. I don't, that might be way too heavy. Let's just see. We'll do 0, 0, 0. Let's do like 50% maybe. I think that's a little bit too heavy. So let's go back here and adjust the spread. Maybe 5 is better than 15, right? And so that might be okay. All right, so that now you can see that it's sort of, as it comes up, it's got this little bit of a drop shadow. You could even maybe make it just a little bit heavier. See what 6% looks like. Oops, we scroll over here and you can see that it has that drop shadow that comes over top of these other elements, right? And then maybe we can just take this and we'll copy this box shadow and let's go down, or excuse me, I guess let's go up and let's put that on the global nav. Let's find, yeah, global nav, and it'll apply to this thing down here. And instead of, yeah, so then we've got that box shadow there. And that might be a little bit too heavy for the bottom one. I think that I want to make that maybe not so big. Maybe we can take this down like to 8 pixels and maybe, let's try like 2 pixels, and I think that might be a little bit better. All right, and so now we've got something that feels like it's got some depth to the page. Okay, all right, so the next thing, and I'm going to go ahead, I haven't really done this in a while, so I'm going to go here and do File, Save All. So I've got everything saved, and then if I come over here, I can also just do a refresh to get rid of all of those highlighted areas and see how it's looking. All right, so the next thing we need to do is we need to pull all of this stuff in so that we've got like either padding or margins on the side. And you know, one of the things that's kind of nice is if you look at the HTML structure, all right, we have this header. We don't want to affect the header. So that means that we can't just put it on the entire article. We can't just put padding on the article. But what we could do is we could pad, or either pad the section, or we could limit the width and give it automatic margins. Those are two of the options that we have. And what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to set it with a width so that it can have margins. And the reason is that I want it to have a max width so that the line length doesn't get too long. So you can see the more I open this, the longer the line length gets. And there's a general rule that you shouldn't have something that's over about 11 words per line, roughly 11 to 15 words per line. For the web, it's hard to read. And so if I wanted to stick with that, I would come over here and let's scroll up. I'm going to target that section. I'm going to come to the bottom here and I'm going to make something new, and I only have one section on the page. If I decided to create new sections though, then I might need to do something different, but for right now I only have one section on the page. So I'm going to go ahead and tell it to be width. In fact, what I can do is instead of width, just regular width, I can also just do max width so that it will always scale, and I can say max width 800 pixels like that. And then if I come over and you see that it'll scale for me, and it keeps scaling until it hits 800 pixels and then it stops scaling. So I can just do max width, and then I can go over here and say margin. Let's just do auto for everything all the way around. All right. And then you see that whenever the max width kicks in, you see that it starts to go in the center, right? All right, well that doesn't address like the padding and stuff that we still need to have on this so that whenever it's, you know, a small screen, it doesn't sit right up on the edge. And so I can come over here and I can say padding. And I don't want the top and bottom to have any padding right now, so I'm just going to say 0, and then for the left and right, let's just do like 1M maybe and see what happens. And so that's a little bit off the edge. That's a little bit nicer. But I still kind of want it to be more padded than that, but I don't want to keep just adding more and more padding. What I think I'd rather do is, so I've got a max width here, which is nice, right? But I think I want to tell it to be a width. Let's say a width of 80%. All right, and then it will definitely be 80%, but it'll max out at 800 pixels, right? So that, and the width property has to come before the max width property so that the max width becomes like essentially like a check on the first one. It becomes a conditional check on 80%, saying, okay, we'll do 80% until it hits 800, and then that's where it maxes out. Okay, and so then you can see here, if we open this up, it's going to work. And let's click off of this somewhere. And in fact, if we go ahead and save, I'm going to save my CSS. I just did it with a key command, Control S or Command S. And then I'm going to come over here and refresh the page so that I can see it. And that doesn't look too bad, right? And so this is a problem down here, right? We still have to fix that. But that doesn't look too bad. Now, the other thing too is I want to make this really stand out, and I want to pull from the color that's up here. And same is true for this. I still, I can pull from color up here. The other thing too is that, like I think that this text is a little too close to the picture. So some of those little things we need to style. And then this about the contributor, that's actually in a footer, and we can style the footer separately. So one of the things that you can do, if you want, while you're in Chrome, is if you want to kind of try to grab a color from up here, you can right click this text, inspect it, and I'm going to dock this off to I'm going to dock it off to the right side for right now, so I can kind of see better what's happening. And so I've got this H2 selected, and what I can do is I can click the little plus symbol, because I don't have an H2 rule down here. It's not showing me something that I wrote. So I'm going to just say color, and for right now I'll just say red or something. And then what I can do now, which is nice, is I can click this color picker, and I can go and I can choose from some portion of the picture until I find something that I think is like a really good color. Okay, and so I think I found this, and I think that this might work, and it also it pops with this color. I could also have, I chose it from here as well, which I also, picked from up here. So there's some different ways that you could do this. You could pick some totally different thing if you feel like this is like too pink or something like that. And then you could just hit the enter key, right? That's an option. And then you've got this color here, and you can copy that and pull it right into brackets. So I'll copy that. Let's come over into brackets, and I'm gonna write a new H2 rule. In fact, I'm just gonna write it so that it's right below the byline. So we'll do H2 like this, and we'll say color, and paste that there. And so yeah, and now I can close this, and if I refresh it, you'll see that it updates with the color that I wanted to use, right? And the other thing too is if you look at this, you'll notice that this is like set apart even more, right? So it's got like these two borders on top and bottom. It's got some padding. It's bigger, right? So I made it bigger. So those are some things too that you can do to really offset it. Now the other thing you'll see is that this is smaller than this. So on a big screen, you might want to increase the H1 size. In fact, let's just do that really fast. Let's go over here and let's make this 4M. Okay, so on a big screen, that doesn't look too bad, right? That means this definitely needs to get bigger. Okay, so let's come over here and start messing around with that. I'm going to close this up a little so that we can see a little bit better. We'll come down to the H2, and I'm going to tell it to be, say, font size. And let's try like 2M and see, and that's bigger. All right, and so that might work, but I think that it doesn't work by itself. So this is where I would say, all right, let's do some padding. Let's do top and bottom padding. Let's try 1M and 0 for the left and right. And then we can put borders there. So let's say border, let's do border bottom, and we'll do 1 pixel, oops, PX, solid. And then let's just pick a color again. This is one where I'm just gonna, I could take this existing color that's right here. Let's copy that, paste that there, and then we can do the same thing for the border top. Let's copy this, and I'll just change this word to top, like that, and we can see how that looks. And I think that I might like these to be a slightly different color. these borders. And so if I inspect this, let's pull this out so it's bigger. That H2, if I inspect it, I can click this, and again, I can go find a color that I think is the right color, and you can see it changing down here for the bottom color, and maybe I want to grab something in this orange area, like somewhere in here. Something slightly pinker and softer. Anyway, you get the idea, and you can really start to isolate based on these different colors, and you know, this might work. Anyway, you can try some different stuff. Let me close that up, and let's go over here, and I'm going to paste in a value that I think works. I'm going to save it, come over here, let's do a refresh, make sure it's updating, and I think that that looks okay. It's not too bad, right? So you start off like this and you pull it up, and then it just starts to come up, right? And then now we need to get this. Same thing, I can use my color picker. Let's do our inspector. And I need to create a new, with this little plus symbol, create a new temporary rule that's got the color. And let's just pick something for right now. Blanche almond, ugh, right? Okay, so we're gonna come over here, and I'm gonna choose like an orange that's maybe somewhere in here. I think that that might be kind of a nice color. Let's see if that's dark enough and see how that looks. That might not be dark enough. We can explore some more. And sorry, I went and I clicked on this and I picked something and I didn't show it to you, but anyway, yeah, I think that this might be a better orange, this color. So I'm just gonna copy this. The other thing I could do, since I have this whole H3 right here, is I could also just go where it says inspector style sheet and click on that, and I can just copy the entire rule, put it in my clipboard. Let's just say copy. I can come over here and paste it right there. All right, and then it goes into my live set of rules, and it should show up everywhere. And it's also working here as well, even though we're going to change that up a little bit. Okay, so that styling's done, so that's not too bad. And then I think what I want to do is I want to change it so that this paragraph text is not sitting so close to the image. So there's some different ways you could do that. You could either adjust the paragraph text or you could adjust the image. Because in theory you don't know, if you were to ever change this article, you don't know what is going to be below the image. It probably is better to adjust the image padding. So let's come over here and let's find our original IMG. All right, so we found this, and then we're going to go here and let's do padding. And let's do top and bottom. Let's do like maybe 1.5 M or something like that. And then 0 on the left and right, and see how that looks. Let's do a save. And now we can refresh this and get rid of all those other marks. And that padding is a little bit better. The only thing that might have happened now is that it probably put padding here. All right, if I were to inspect this and I were to check it out, then it would show that I've got my logo top rule here, but also being applied is this padding. And if I don't want that, then I need to go here on line, it shows me it's on line 75, and I need on line 75 to add something like, you know, padding, oops, padding of 0, and then that way it won't pad anything that is specific to this one image, this logo top image, right? And so that's on line 75. I think that I'll be okay with that. Let's go to line 75 in our code. And this is where this rule is. So I can just add here at the bottom, I'll just say padding 0 so that it doesn't add any padding anywhere. Let's close this. And we can do a refresh and check and see. And that padding looks fine. This padding looks fine. So we're good to go with that. And that leaves the last thing here, which is styling the footer. And so, oh, the other thing too, look what happened down here. The padding got messed up for this as well. Let's right click and inspect that. And if you remember, this one is getting its rule from image that's inside of the logo bottom. So on line 33, again, on that rule, we'd have to also add a padding of 0 so that it doesn't get messed up. So let's go to line 33. Here, I'll just copy this rule into my clipboard, and let's go to line 33 in our code of our CSS, and here's the rule. Let's add this padding right there of 0, and now we should be good up on this picture, and we're good on the one down here, and these are still okay. All right, so so that's that. The next video, we're going to talk a little bit about styling this footer section so that it looks like this, where it's about the contributor. Okay?